There we are. We are live. Shalom, everybody. Tonight we are studying the laws regarding murder and the protection of life from Rambam's Mishnah Torah. Let me post a link here in the side chat so everybody can follow along here. There we go. Okay, I'll open this up. Chapter 1. Let me know when everybody's ready. Ready? Wow, I just pulled an Elmer Fudd there.
No problem. Start when you start, man.
Okay. They contain 17 mitzvot, 7 positive mitzvot, and 10 negative mitzvot. They are not to murder, not to accept ransom from a murderer to save him from execution, to exile a person who killed inadvertently, not to accept ransom from a person who killed inadvertently to save him from exile, not to kill a murderer directly after the murder before he stands trial, to save a person who is being pursued by killing the pursuer, not to have mercy on the pursuer, not to stand idly by when a colleague's life is in danger, to set aside cities of refuge and to prepare the roads leading to them, to break the neck of a calf in a wadi when required, never to till or seed the land where the calf was decapitated, not to create a dangerous situation, to build a guardrail, not to cause a well-meaning person to blunder, to help a person whose animal collapses on the road to unload it, together with the owner to reload the animal, not to abandon him helpless with his burden. These mitzvot are explained in the chapters that follow. 1. Whenever a person kills a human being, he transgresses a negative commandment, as Exodus 20:13 states, do not murder. If a person kills a Jew intentionally in the presence of witnesses, he should be executed by decapitation. This is implied by Exodus 21:20, which states that when a person kills a servant, vengeance will certainly be executed. The oral tradition explains that this refers to decapitation. When he kills the victim with an iron weapon or burns him with fire, the murderer should be executed by decapitation. 2. It is a mitzvah for the blood redeemer to kill the murderer, as Numbers 35:19 states, the blood redeemer shall put the murderer to death. Whoever is fit to inherit the victim's estate becomes the redeemer of his blood. If the blood redeemer did not desire or was unable to kill the murderer, or the victim did not have a relative to redeem his blood, the court executes the murderer by decapitation. The following rules apply if a father kills his son. If the victim has a son, the son should kill his grandfather. As he is, if the victim has a son, hold on. I'm misreading. Wow, my vision is blurry. One less pill next time, Gav. The following rules apply if a father kills his son. If the victim has a son, the son should kill his grandfather because he is the blood redeemer. If he does not have a son, none of the victim's brothers becomes the blood redeemer who must kill his father. Instead, he should be executed by the court. Both a male and a female may become blood redeemers. The court is enjoined not to accept ransom from the murderer to save him from execution. Even if he gave all the money in the world, and even if the blood redeemer was willing to forgive him, he should be executed. The rationale is that the soul of the victim is not the property of the blood redeemer, but the property of the Holy One, blessed be he. And he commanded in Numbers 35:31, do not accept ransom for the soul of a murderer. There is nothing that the Torah warns so strongly against as murder. As it says in 33, do not pollute the land in which you live, for blood will pollute the land. 5. When a murderer kills willfully, he should not be killed by witnesses or observers until he is brought to court and sentenced to death, as implied by Numbers 35:12. A murderer should not be put to death until he stands before the congregation in judgment. This law applies to all those liable for execution by the court who transgressed and performed the forbidden act. They should not be executed until their trial is completed by the court. When does the above apply? When the person has already transgressed and performed the transgression for which he is liable to be executed by the court. When, however, a person is pursuing a colleague with the intention of killing him, even if the pursuer is a minor. Every Jewish person is commanded to attempt to save the person being pursued, even if it is necessary to kill the pursuer. What is implied? If a road deaf is a pursuer, by the way. If the road deaf was warned and continues to pursue his intended victim, even though he did not acknowledge the warning, since he continues his pursuit, he should be killed. If it is possible to save the pursued by damaging one of the limbs of the rodef, one should. Thus, if one can strike him with an arrow, a stone, or a sword, and cut off his hand, break his leg, blind him, or in any other way prevent him from achieving his objective, one should do so. If there is no way to be precise in one's aim and save the person being pursued without killing the rodef, one should kill him, even though he has not yet killed his victim. This is implied by Deuteronomy 25:11-12, which states, if a man is fighting with his brother, and the wife of one grabs the attacker by his private parts, you must cut off her hand, you may not show pity. There is no difference whether she grabs his private parts or any other organ that imperils his life. Similarly, the rodef may be a man or a woman. The intent of the verse is that whenever a person intends to strike a colleague with a blow that could kill him, the pursued should be saved by cutting off the hand of the rodef. If this cannot be done, the victim should be saved by taking the rodef's life. As the verse continues, you may not show pity. This indeed is one of the negative mitzvot, not to take pity on the life of a rodef or pursuer. On this basis, our sages ruled that when complications arise and a pregnant woman cannot give birth, it is permitted to abort the fetus in her womb, whether with a knife or with drugs, for the fetus is considered a rodef of its mother. If the head of the fetus emerges, it should not be touched, because one life should not be sacrificed for another. Although the mother may die, this is the nature of the world. The laws of a rodef apply whether a person is pursuing a colleague with the intent of killing him, or a maiden that had been consecrated with the intent of raping her, as reflected by Deuteronomy 22:26, which establishes an equation between murder and rape, stating, just as when a man arises against his colleague and kills him, so too is this matter, i.e. the rape of a consecrated maiden. The same principle is reflected by another verse within the passage, which states, the consecrated maiden cried out, but there was no one to save her. Implied is that if there is someone who can save her, he must do so, using all means, including taking the life of the pursuer. The same laws apply with regard to any woman forbidden as an erva, but not to relations with an animal. With regard to homosexual rape, by contrast, one may save a man from being raped by killing the intended rapist. If one pursues an animal with the intent of sodomizing it, or one seeks to perform a forbidden labor on the Sabbath or to worship idols, although the Sabbath and the prohibition against idol worship are fundamental elements of our faith, the person should not be killed until he commits the transgression and is brought to court, convicted, and executed. If a person pursued a woman forbidden as an erva, took hold of her, and he inserted the head of his organ within her, he may not be slain, even though he has not concluded sexual relations. He must be brought to court. If a man was pursuing a woman forbidden as an erva, and other men were pursuing him in order to save her, and she tells them, let him be so that he does not kill me, they should not listen to her. Instead, he should be intimidated and prevented from raping her by maiming his limbs. If he cannot be prevented by maiming his limbs, his life may be taken as explained above. When a person could prevent a murder or a rape by maiming the rodef's limbs, but did not take the trouble and instead saved the victim by killing the rodef, he is regarded as one who shed the blood and is liable for death. Nevertheless, he should not be executed by the court. Whenever a person can save another person's life, but he fails to do so, he transgresses a negative commandment. As Leviticus 19:16 states, do not stand idly by while your brother's blood is at stake. Similarly, this commandment applies when a person sees a colleague drowning at sea or being attacked by robbers or a wild animal, and he can save himself or can hire others to save him. Similarly, it applies when he hears Gentiles or Muslim conspiring to harm a colleague or planning a snare for him, and he does not inform him and notify him of the danger. And it applies when a person knows of a Gentile or a man or force who has a complaint against a colleague, and he can appease the aggressor on behalf of his colleague, but he fails to do so. And similarly, in all analogous instances, a person who fails to act transgresses the commandment, do not stand idly by while your brother's blood is at stake. 15. When a person sees a rodef pursuing a colleague to kill him, or a woman forbidden as an erva to rape her, and he has a potential to save the victim and yet fails to do so, he has negated the observance of the positive commandment you must cut off her hand, and has transgressed 2 negative commandments. You may not show pity, and do not stand idly by while your brother's blood is at stake. 16. Even though lashes are not given as punishment for the transgression of these prohibitions because they do not involve committing a forbidden deed, they are nevertheless very severe. For whoever causes the loss of a Jewish soul is considered as if he destroyed the entire world, and whoever saves a Jewish soul is considered as if he has saved the entire world. Comments, questions, concerned, blueberry muffin recipes. I'll take it all.
We're in Deuteronomy, and actually, I think it was in this week's Torah portion. Maybe it's the next week's Torah portion, but we always get that common complaint from the secular community about how we're so barbaric. If a rapist rapes a woman, the woman has to marry the rapist. I mean, clearly here, I don't know how many videos I can make. I don't know how many videos you can make, Rabbi. We're doing it here again tonight. Clearly, it says you got to kill the rapist.
Well, that's
who you marrying? He's dead.
That's before the fact. If he's attempting to rape someone and you witness this, you're obligated to kill him in order to prevent that from happening. But if he's already succeeded in raping her, and it's already then it's a different matter. You can't execute someone for rape, believe it or not. You can kill them to prevent them from raping someone, but once they've already raped someone, there are penalties, yes, but they're not killed for it.
Can you? We get, I think, a good idea of rodef, and we hear pursuer. I think pursuer sometimes. I think stop thief, or a guy who just mugged an old lady and has her purse, and someone's pursuing him. Can you clarify what a rodef?
Sure. Sure. So in simple parlance, rodef means pursuer, but in Jewish law, a rodef is a specific person who is pursuing another person in order to harm them. It's someone who could cause some type of either very serious bodily injury, like rape, or who could kill you. For example, Judaism allows preemptive self-defense. It's in Tractate Brachot of the Talmud. If someone is pursuing you in order to kill you, and you know their intention is to kill you, you're obligated to rise up from your slumber first and meet him on the way to kill you and kill him first. So a rodef is someone who is after you, trying to kill or seriously hurt you.
Excellent. Thank you. When they got to abortion and how the child is a rodef when the mother's life is at stake. Mm-hmm. However, it just takes the head, the crowning, and then it's a whole different story.
Yes, right. Once the head is emerged, it's considered a full person with its own life, and you can't, even if there is a danger to the mother's life, you can't kill it at that point. You can't prioritize one life over the other. And some people take this concept of a rodef and they broaden it very, very widely in order to justify doing certain things. I don't know if any of you know who Yigal Amir is. He was the guy in 1995. He assassinated our prime minister, Yitzhak Rabin. And his defense at his trial was that Yitzhak Rabin was a rodef. He was trying to sign a peace agreement with the Arabs, and that would possibly lead to terrorism against Jews, and so it was justified in killing him. That's ridiculous. That's taking it to an absurdly broad level of definition for what a rodef is in Jewish law. And so, of course, they found him guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison.
So would you consider when you go to war as the opposing side as rodef, or no?
No, rodef is only like on an individual level. It's not like a nation-to-nation thing. But no, I consider warfare a different category.
Okay.
It's funny because I used to have a good friend, matter of fact, a person who brought me to Judaism. good friend Mateo that I spent many hours on Stickam talking and learning with. He's an Orthodox Jew, religious, and he believed that abortion was allowed all the way up until the day the baby was born.
Yeah, that's a very, very modern ruling from a rabbi called the Titz Eliezer. It's pretty faulty logic. So a fetus is not considered a full human being, a person, until it's born. But at the same time, the only time you're allowed to have an abortion is if there's some type of complication that could kill the mother. That's it. I mean, there's literally no other allowance given. So yeah, I mean that's pretty absurd.
I heard the law went back to Genesis 3 or 4 when Cain rises up and kills Abel, and God says, "The bloods of your brother."
The blood within a man. Yeah.
And he used a plural, and I heard that was referred to as future generations that will never.
Yes. It's very interesting because it never appears as not even in Jewish translations does it ever appear as plural, but in the Hebrew it's clearly plural. It's dameh instead of just dam. So yeah, and it's very interesting. And then another point in Genesis that it also they never translate this into English correctly, not even in Jewish publishing houses, but in Hebrew. But it's the man sheds the blood of a man, by man shall his blood be shed. I'm sure you've all heard it. What it actually says is, whoever sheds the blood within a man, by man shall his blood be shed. And that's where we get the prohibition from abortion.
Oh. Yeah, that's a little different.
Within a man, I mean, the context, I guess, is mankind, obviously.
Man in the general sense.
Right. Now, does that, I mean, we can go real liberal on that and say that we can have, like, transgender pregnancies, huh?
Don't go there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, please.
God, I was hungry.
I'm sorry, I ruined it.
You owe him one blueberry muffin recipe.
All right.
Oh,
Kosher.
it's going to get interesting. I never liked them before, but I would almost murder someone for one now. Bad pun, sorry.
Yes.
Anything else for chapter 1?
I'm pretty good. That was a good chapter.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it was good.
Let me take chapter 2.
If you're willing, go ahead.
Yeah. Get situated here on my end. Okay. Chapter 2. Whenever a person kills a colleague with his hands, for example, he strikes him with a sword or with a stone that can cause death, strangles him until he dies, or burns him in the fire, he should be executed by the court, for he himself has killed him. But a person who hires a murderer to kill a colleague, one who sends his servants and they kill him, one who binds a colleague and leaves him before a lion or the like, and the beast kills him, and a person who commits suicide are all considered to be shedders of blood. The sin of bloodshed is upon their hands, and they are liable for death at the hands of God. They are not, however, liable for execution by the court. Which source indicates this is the law? Genesis 9:6 states, when a person sheds the blood within a man, by a man shall his blood be shed. I just want to get that there. This refers to a person who kills a colleague by himself without employing an agent. The verse continues, of the blood of your own lives I will demand an account. This refers to a person who commits suicide. From the hand of every wild beast I will demand an account. And that's in Genesis 9:5. This refers to a person who places a person before a wild beast so that he will devour him. From the hand of a man, from the hand of one's brother, I will demand an account for the soul of a man. This refers to a person who hires others to kill a colleague, and all of these last three instances, the verse uses the expression, I will demand an account, indicating that their judgment is in heaven's hands. When a Jewish king desires to slay any of these murderers and the like, who are not liable for execution by the courts by virtue of his regal authority in order to protect society, he has the license. Similarly, if the court desires to execute them as a result of an immediate fiat, because this was required at the time, they have the license to do so as they see fit. If the king did not execute them, nor did the court deem the time as such to require strengthening the strictures against murder, it should nevertheless have the murderer beaten with severe blows, so that he is on the verge of death, and imprisoned, deprived, and afflicted with all types of discomfort in order to strike fear and awe into the hearts of the other wicked men, so that this death should not be a stumbling block and a snag for them, causing them to say, let me arrange to have my enemies killed the way so and so did, and I will not suffer the consequences. Whether a person kills an adult or an infant that is 1 day old, a male or female, he should be executed if he killed them intentionally, or exiled if he killed them unintentionally. With regard to an infant, the above applies provided it was born after a full-term pregnancy. If, however, it was born before 9 months passed, it is considered to be an invaluable birth until it lives for 30 days. If it is killed within those 30 days, the killer should not be executed. Whether a person kills a healthy person, a sick person who is on the verge of dying, even a person in his actual death throes, the killer should be executed. If, however, one kills a person in his death throes because of wounds inflicted upon him by others, for instance, he was stricken until he was on the verge of death, and he is in his death throes, the killer should not be executed by the court. When, by contrast, a person is considered trefa, even though he eats, drinks, and walks in the marketplace, he is not held liable by an earthly court for killing him. Every person is presumed to be physically sound, and the person who kills him should be executed unless it is certainly known that he is a trefa. And all the physicians say that his infirmity does not have any remedy for humans, and it will surely cause his death. No other factor does, if no other factor does first. When a person who is trefa kills another man, he should be killed, as reflected by Deuteronomy 19:19, which states, and you shall destroy the evil from among your midst. When does this apply? When he committed the murder in the presence of a court. If, however, he committed the murder in the presence of witnesses, he is not liable. The rationale is that the witnesses may be disqualified through hazama. And if they are disqualified through hazama, they will not be punished by execution, for they intended merely to have a person who is trefa executed. And whenever the laws of hazama cannot be applied to testimony, it is not considered to be valid testimony in capital cases. If a person kills either a Jew or a Canaanite servant, he should be executed. If he kills inadvertently, he should be exiled. At first, a person who killed a resident alien should not be executed by the court, as implied by Exodus 21:14, which introduces the laws regarding the punishment for murder by stating, when a man acts intentionally against his colleague, killing him. Needless to say, the ruling applies with regard to a Gentile. Whether a person kills his own Canaanite servant or a servant belonging to someone else, he should not be executed, for a servant has accepted the yoke of mitzvot and has been added to the heritage of God. He should be executed. Did I say should not be?
Yes.
Whether a person kills his own Canaanite servant or a servant belonging to someone else, he should be executed, for a servant has accepted the yoke of mitzvot and has been added to the heritage of God. 12. What is the difference between killing one's own Canaanite servant and a servant belonging to someone else? With regard to one's own servant, one has the right to strike him. Thus, if one strikes him with a blow that is sufficient to cause death, and he is on the verge of dying, but survives for 24 hours and dies afterwards, the owner should not be executed, although the servant died because of the blow. As Exodus 21:21 states, but if he survives for a day or two, he shall not be avenged, for he is his property. What is the intent of the phrase for a day or two? A day that is like 2 days, a full 24-hour cycle. Different rules apply when, by contrast, one strikes a Canaanite servant who belongs to another person. If one strikes him with a blow sufficient to kill, one may be executed for killing him, as one would be executed for killing any free Jew, even if he does not die because of the blow until several days have passed. It appears to me that when a person strikes his servant with a knife, a sword, a stone, a fist, or the like, and was assessed that he would die, and he did die, the leniency granted if the servant survives more than 24 hours does not apply. Instead, even if the servant dies a year later, the owner should be executed because of the servant's death. To underscore this point, Exodus 21:20 mentions striking the servant with a rod, for the Torah has granted the owner permission to beat his servant only with a rod, a staff, a strap, or the like, and he may not strike him with murderous blows. The following rules apply when a person sells his servant and stipulates that the servant must continue to serve him for 30 days, and in those 30 days, either the seller or the purchaser strikes the servant. The leniency granted of this if the servant survives more than 24 hours does not apply, neither to the seller nor to the purchaser, and the killer should be executed. The rationale is that the servant no longer is the personal property of the seller, nor has he entered the domain of the purchaser. Similarly, if one person is half servant and half free, or there is a servant belonging to two partners, and the owner or one of the owners strikes and kills the servant, the leniency granted if the servant survives more than 24 hours does not apply. For in these cases, there is not an owner who owns the servant as his personal property. Therefore, the owner should be executed as would any other person. Thus ends chapter 2, and I apologize for any mistakes.
No, you're fine.
Good reading.
Nothing?
Oh yeah, I got. What is?
It's a rough one. Go ahead, Rose.
What is the treifa mean?
A treifa is a person who is still alive, but we know is terminally ill.
Okay, that's what I was assuming.
Someone who we know for a fact is going to die.
Excuse me. Okay, one thing I did have a little inspiration on was that if we go back to the book of Daniel and when he was thrown in the lion's den, that makes sense now that God would not let the lions touch him because, number one, he was Jewish, and number two, for the lion to kill them would mean that they would have to die as well.
Mm-hmm.
But once Daniel came out and the other people went in, since they weren't Jewish, that just hit home.
Yeah.
But another thing is like all those Romans and the Roman amphitheaters with the lions dens and all that. Oh, oof.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
All right, let me see if I can salvage something here. Let me see if I got a good question.
Sure.
James, what do you got for us?
Treifa was. I needed some clarification of that. It seems pretty black and white, pretty straightforward.
You'd think you have to be a philosopher to mess this up.
The question I have real quick is, there's only one sentence that this whole thing is in dark, bold, black. Is there a reason why that is? From the hand of man, from the hand of one's brother, I will demand an account for the soul of a man, that's in bold letters. Is there a reason why that stands out compared to the other texts?
Not in my mind, no, not compared to any other text mentioned in the third part there. That's probably just a mistake when they made this website.
Oh, okay. It's a textual. Oh, okay.
That's what I would assume, and I can't think of why that would be considered more important than anything else. Yeah, I think that's probably about it.
Did we describe the Hazama yet?
What's that now?
Hazama?
So hazama is a term we use when witnesses to a crime are invalidated by their own testimony. So let's say a whole room full of people. Let's say you have 30 people locked in an auditorium. Somebody murders somebody. Let's say only two people originally saw it, but everybody heard about it. And now a whole bunch of extra people are now claiming to have seen it.
False witnesses.
Yeah, and they're lying. It invalidates the whole witness. You have to let him go, even if he did do it.
Ooh.
Mistrial.
Yes. And the laws of witnesses, which are in a completely different chapter, that's also very, very, very strenuous. It's actually very hard to convict somebody of a capital offense in Judaism. It's very difficult. So, the law gives you a lot of outs. So, you had asked, someone had asked about a treifa. That's a term. That's a person who we know is sick and is dying, and who isn't going to live long anyway. It's very sad. I mean, it's killing. It's wrong, but it's not considered full-fledged murder to the point that we execute a person for killing a treifa. Because we know that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to assume it comes from the word treif, since the animal is destined to die. That's why it's called treif food.
Literally, it's from the same root word. It's really kind of an un-PC way to refer to somebody. It means unfit, or not proper. There's something very, very wrong with them. So if a person, God forbid, has, I don't know, leukemia, something like that, and you kill him, you're liable for murder. God will judge you, but the court cannot execute you.
Is this a mercy of some sort in the law?
No, it's just recognizing that it's not it's not as of yet. Well, it's the same thing as the way Judaism views the unborn fetus. Abortion for any other purpose than saving the life of the mother is murder, but you're not liable for the death penalty for it. The same thing with a treifa. It's not considered a fully formed human life.
Mm-hmm.
So mercy, they have to go by the natural laws of living and death. No mercy killings allowed.
Right. No, it's still forbidden to kill a treifa. You can't. It's not a legal thing to do. You're not allowed to do it. But if it does happen, the person who did it is not held, to the death penalty.
So this means that if the court found you guilty, but can a court? So a court could find you guilty for this.
Right.
Does it go around like a scarlet letter, if you'll forgive the expression, on them? And I mean, how would you it's almost like you'd have to be exiled at the same time, wouldn't you?
No, not necessarily. Well, I mean, if you killed him, I don't think so. I think if you kill a treifa, there's really no earthly punishment for it. There's nothing that happens to you in this life.
Do you have to go to court for it, or can you go to court? Can you be brought before?
They could. I mean, okay. So say you kill a person, whatever. The court, you're charged and you're arrested and whatever, and they investigate it and they find out, and oh, this person was dying. This person had leprosy or whatever. This person that he murdered had leprosy. He or she was a treifa. Oh, okay. Let him go.
Okay. That's between he and God at that point.
Right. And so, I mean, there are other categories of killing, like towards the top, But a person who hires a murderer to kill a colleague, one who sends his servants and they kill him, one who binds his colleague and leaves him before a lion. Wow, some friends there. Or the like, and the beast kills him, and a person who commits suicide are all considered to be shedders of blood. The sin of bloodshed is upon their hands, and they are liable for death at the hands of God. They are not, however, liable for execution by the court. Kind of stupid to charge someone who commits suicide with the crime, but okay.
Well, if they fail, I can see where that comes in.
Yeah. Well, they used to do that. I actually knew somebody who attempted suicide in the 80s, and they actually ended up in jail over it, which didn't exactly help his depression. But
no kidding.
He's better now.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's so there are ways you can kill a person in which, in theory, you could get away with it. In this life, but you're not going to escape the final judgment roll call. So, and suicide is considered a very serious sin. It's very, very sad when someone in the Jewish community commits suicide. You're not allowed to observe mourning rituals for them. You're not allowed to bury them in a Jewish cemetery. It's a very, very, very horrible thing for the family.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's found that they were mentally ill, there was something wrong with them where they were not in complete control of their faculties, and then an exception is made. But okay.
I think one more thing I wanted to think. Okay, I think I got everything I need. Okay.
What's that?
Okay, I had a sentence, but I lost it. Now I'll ask it if I come back to it later on.
How do you translate the title of this book, Rabbi?
How do I translate it? Laws regarding a murderer and protecting life or guarding life. A Rotzeach is a murderer in Hebrew, not to be confused with not to be confused with Rokeach, which is a pharmacist.
It's interesting how that they're similar.
Very.
One heals and one kills, right? Huh?
Well, my wife first moved here with me. She was asking someone on the street, "Eifel Horatzeach, where's the murderer?" People are looking at her like, "Why are you trying to find the murderer?" She was trying to find the pharmacy. Funny.
Is one who attempts suicide considered their own, pursuer?
Yeah. What's he going to do to prevent the pursuer? Kill him?
Yeah, it's rough because if you were to legislate, you would have to balance between punishing for attempting to kill, and then there would be the commands to save a life at the same time. It's
right. So we don't punish for an attempt. We only punish when the actual crime has been committed, and we cannot punish someone who successfully commits suicide. Now, can we? So again, that's in God's hands.
Now, suicide. We can go deep into like all the different aspects to it, like abusing yourself is a form of suicide, right? Like people who cut. Like a big thing nowadays, kids they cut in high school.
Yeah, it would be considered a sin if you did it with a sound mind. It would be considered a sin.
Right. I remember reading in the Midrash. It says that Abraham was not allowed to circumcise himself because would be considered murder. So he had been told by God first in order to do it. Then it was considered a mitzvah.
Right. Correct.
Okay, that makes sense now.
You're not allowed to inflict. That's part. In part. That's part of the prohibition against tattoos and piercings, too, because you have to damage your body to do it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I can see the logic in that. Yeah, good one.
Would getting a tattoo also be labeling oneself other than his servant, kind of a thing? What I never knew there was another reason besides the fact that you have to hurt yourself to do it.
Well, no. So the prohibition of all with tattoos is you're copying a pagan idol worshiping custom. I mean, look, if you want to ask me what Abraham probably looked like coming from the city of Ur in Mesopotamia, the man was probably covered head to toe in tattoos. That's just part of the ritual back then in pagan worship. But he found God and he changed. I know many religious Jews that have tattoos. Maybe they were not always so religious. And when they changed life. Having a tattoo is not so problem. Getting one is. I mean, getting one is definitely a sin.
But not medical tattoos.
I never heard of such a thing.
I have 3 small dots on my body where they keep the radiation that they are doing.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that would be permitted because it's for medical. It's for refuah. It's for healing.
Right.
Also, if you're young and dumb and you honestly, I mean, really don't know better, or you haven't been pushed hard enough, when you get a tattoo and you do something stupid and then you wake up later on in life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know.
You're still prohibited to be buried with the nation?
No. That's an old myth.
Oh.
I was part of the Hevra Kadisha in Cleveland, the burial society. I prepared and I washed many Jewish bodies of men that had tattoos on them, and we buried them. It's not something it's one of those common folk myths that you'll hear. If you have a tattoo, you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. You absolutely can. It happens every day.
I'll be darned.
That's not something that you can still be buried. It's not a problem. And there's also another myth that people spread around. I don't know where people get these ideas that if you have a tattoo, you can be buried in a Jewish cemetery as long as it's removed. You're not allowed to damage the body. Even after death, you're not allowed to cut the body or break bones or anything like that. You can't cut skin off of a corpse. So no, that's another myth as well. You can be buried with your tattoos. Your tattoos are between you and God. That's not something that you're executed for. That's not something you're lashed for. That's not something you're fined for. That's a personal sin that you're violating. It's not between you and the nation.
Well, nowadays you can have tattoos removed. You don't necessarily have to cut the skin. They can do it with laser technology.
Yep, and guess what? It's prohibited.
Okay, that's why I brought that up.
You know why?
Oh, you're allowed to?
No, you're not allowed to. If you have a tattoo, you have to leave it.
Oh.
You're not allowed to have it removed because, again, it leaves scarring. It's damaging the body.
And that would not fall under a medical procedure?
And unless there is some type of extreme or obscure medical case where the tattoo had to be removed to keep you healthy, then no.
Okay.
I know plenty of people that have tattoos. It's not a huge deal anymore. I don't have any. My wife doesn't have any. My grandmother had one on her arm. There was the numbers from Auschwitz.
Oh, yeah.
It's not something you can really judge people for.
Oh, no. Oof. I remember an interview with Paul Stanley from KISS. You know, he's Jewish, Mr. Eisen. He was saying that my family were not religious. Let me tell you something. He was talking about, his heritage and how he stands up for it. And he goes, yeah, most of the people I knew growing up, every apartment I went to, They all had tattoos on their arms. And he's like, yeah, I'm Jewish. Absolutely. He went straight. I mean, went straight for this question, and just, wow. Sorry, I just recently heard that it was.
Oh no. My friend, a friend of mine who wanted to make Aliyah and come here to immigrate to Israel. In order to come here under the law of return, you have to prove that you're Jewish. And they were not listening to him. They said, like, oh, you don't have enough documentation or whatever to prove that your mother was Jewish. This is a guy who was in his 40s or 50s. And so he brought his mother to the office in New York City where they submit documentation or whatever. And they said, we need proof that your mother's Jewish. And so what she did is she lifted up her sleeve and showed the clerk her numbers on her arm. And they didn't bother him anymore. They approved his application on the spot. They weren't going to push it any further than that.
Amen.
Never again. Never again.
Right.
Oh, bless her. I'm glad he made it. Good.
Anything else for chapter 2?
Was that 2?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
I love Jewish law. I love halakha. I love it.
Oh, good. I'm glad you get something out of it.
Absolutely.
Very good.
It's good for the mind, you know. Very logical, very, very, very logical, logically laid out, well thought out, you know.
Yeah. Talmud study is very good for the brain because it's basically one giant puzzle. It's you're not just reading, like here Rambam just gives us the law as the sages declared it. In the Talmud, you actually have to read through their entire, basically what is a transcript of their arguments, which sometimes ran on for God knows how long, just to reach a conclusion. But it's very interesting. It's very enigmatic. Do we have a rep? I almost asked if we had a referee. Do we have a volunteer to read chapter 3?
Yes, I will read it.
Okay.
Chapter 3. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Number 1. The following rules apply when a person strikes a colleague intentionally with a stone or a piece of wood and causes his death. We assess the object with which he was struck, the place where he was struck, and determine whether or not it is likely that such an article would cause death when used to give a blow in such a place. This is implied by Numbers 35:17 through 18, which states, if he struck him with a fist-sized stone that could cause death, or if he struck him with a fist-sized wooden article that would cause death. That could cause death teaches that the murder weapon must be such that would likely cause him to die. Striking a person on his heart cannot be compared to striking him on his thigh. 2. Since the verse states that could cause death, this phrase also implies that we assess the place where the victim was struck. Just as we assess the object with which he was struck and the place where he was struck, we also assess the force of the blow. This is implied by the phrase "Ibid," a fist-sized stone, from which we infer that we evaluate the force of the hand. For one cannot compare a person who throws a stone at his colleague from a distance of 2 cubits to one who throws a stone from a distance of 10 cubits. At 10 cubits, the stone will have more force. Nor can one compare a person who throws a stone at his colleague from a distance of 10 cubits to one who throws a stone from the distance of 100 cubits. For over an extended distance, the force of the blow will be diminished. 3. Similarly, the blow itself and the power of the killer and the victim should be assessed. Is he large or small? Is he strong or weak? Is he healthy or sickly? These and all similar questions should be investigated. This is all implied by the phrase that could cause death. It teaches that all factors involved in the person's death should be assessed. 4. The Torah did not mention a minimum size with regard to an iron object, as Numbers 35:16 states. If he struck him with an iron utensil and he dies, he is a murderer. This applies even to a needle, provided the object is appointed like a needle, a spit, a knife, or the like. If, however, a person strikes a colleague with a hunk of metal or the like, we evaluate the blow as we would evaluate it if it had been dealt with a piece of wood or stone, or a stone. Excuse me. 5. When a person strikes a colleague without an object and kills him, example, he strikes him with his hand or foot or butts him with his head and kills him, we should assess the force of the blow, the strength of the victim, and the place where the blow is given. One cannot compare a person poking at a colleague with his finger to one who kicks his colleague with all his strength. Nor can one compare a blow given on the heart to a blow given in the groin. Nor can one compare a weak person who strikes a healthy, strong person to a healthy, strong person who strikes a weak or sickly person. 6. What is the source that teaches that an assessment must be made in such an instance? Numbers 35:21 states, or if he maliciously strikes him with his hand and he dies, the one who strikes him shall certainly die. Although it mentions with his hand, the verse also states that the blow must be given maliciously. Applied is that we assess the force of the blow. 7. Similarly, when a person pushes a colleague from the rooftop, causing him to fall and die, we assess the height of the place from which he pushed him and the strength of the person who was pushed. For an infant who fell cannot be compared to an adult who fell. What is the source that teaches that we must assess the height from which the victim fell? Numbers 35:20 states, if he pushes him down with hatred. It appears to me that any place that is not more than 10 hand breadths high is not considered of sufficient height to kill, as explained with regard to an animal that fell into a cistern. 8. The same law applies if the person strikes a colleague with a stone, a block of wood, a clod of earth, a block of salt or sulfur, or a basket full of dust or pebbles, or even if he strikes him with a cake of dry figs. This is implied by the phrase that could cause death, i.e., anything that may cause death. And it is the weight of the object that makes it fit to cause death. 9. When a person pushes a colleague into the water or into the fire, an assessment should be made. If the person could ascend, the one who pushed him is not liable for execution. If he could not ascend, the one who pushes him is liable. Similarly, if one held a colleague in water or in fire until he did not have any strength to ascend, and the colleague died, the one who held him is liable, even if he did not push him there at the outset. Similarly, a person is liable for execution in all of the following instances. He held his hand over his colleague's mouth and nose until he left him in his death throes, unable to live. He bound a colleague and left him in the sun or in the cold until he died. He built an airtight construction over him that prevented air from coming in. He placed a colleague in a house or a cave and filled it with smoke until he died. Or he placed a colleague in an airtight marble building and it lit a candle, causing the colleague to die because of lack of air. In all these instances, a person who caused the victim's death is executed. It is as if he had strangled him by hand. 10. Different rules apply, however, in the following instances. A person binds a colleague and leaves him to starve to death. He binds him and leaves him in a place that will ultimately cause him to be subjected to cold or heat, and these influences indeed come and kill the victim. He covers him with a barrel. He uncovers the roof of a building where he is staying, or he causes a snake to bite him. Needless to say, a distinction is made if a colleague dispatches a dog or a snake at a colleague. In all the above instances, the person is not executed. He is nevertheless considered to be a murderer, and the one who seeks vengeance for bloodshed will seek vengeance for the blood he shed. 11. Similarly, execution is not required in the following instances. A person pushed his colleague into a cistern, and there was a ladder that he could have used to climb out, or he shot an arrow at him, but he was holding a shield with which he could protect himself, and another person came and took away the ladder or the shield. Neither of the two is executed by the court. Moreover, even if the person who pushed the victim himself, the one who takes away the ladder, he is not liable for execution. God will, however, seek him out and avenge the bloodshed. 12. When a person throws a stone against a wall and the stone rebounds and kills a person, the thrower of the stone is liable for execution by the court, for it was propelled by the power of the person who threw it. A similar principle applies with regard to a person playing with a ball, who was given a warning and caused a death by throwing it. If the victim was within 4 cubits of the wall, he is not liable. If the victim was beyond 4 cubits away, even if he was standing at the end of a distance of 100 cubits, the thrower is liable, providing the ball is of sufficient weight to kill, as explained. 13. If a person threw a stone upward and it went to the side and caused death, the one who threw it is liable. If the person binds a colleague and puts him in a place where he cannot flee, and then turns a current of water on him, causing him to die, the killer should be executed. This law applies provided the victim dies from the burst of water that flows because of his deeds. Okay.
Well then. Discussions, thoughts?
Don't try to kill anybody with a hose of water.
Don't try to kill anybody as general, pretty good life advice.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you actually need to be told that, I'm not sure what we can do with you.
Yeah. Pretty much self-explanatory.
Is there something in particular, Rabbi, that you would like to highlight or point out for us in particular? Something that you think?
Don't tell people. That's the highlight.
All right. Fair enough.
This is pretty clear chapter.
Yep.
But you kind of get the principle.
Yes.
In 12:13, when a person throws a rock hard enough that it bounces off a wall and kills someone, the reason that they're still executed is because there had to be intent there to throw it that hard. Everybody get that?
Yep.
Okay.
Just be careful when you play ping pong or tennis. Got it. Or handball.
Well, you have to. I don't know how you'd kill someone with a ping pong ball. They're basically little eggshells.
What kind of ping pong are you playing there?
Who knows? Where'd it go? Well, the one made me curl my legs up when they were talking about hitting somebody in the groin. It's like, oh, no.
I found it interesting that if you push someone down a hole and you took the ladder, how did they word it? Okay, he has a ladder. He can come back up. He's not to be executed. Someone comes along and then takes the ladder. Another guy, another amigo, hombre, comes and takes the ladder. He's not to be put to death either. Is there a reason why? I mean, is it just because
it could be accidental. Say the guy that fell in the cistern or was pushed into the cistern, and he's down there struggling a while. Then he falls asleep, standing up or whatever. Guy comes along. Oh, what's this ladder doing here? I better put that away.
Right. Well, you can consider Joseph when his brothers threw him down.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Right, but wasn't the brothers considered murderers, or?
Well, no, they didn't kill him. They came back a day later and sold him into slavery.
Oh, that's right. That is what happened. All right. Silly me.
So here, this is the most.
They told Dad that he was killed by an animal.
Yeah, they did lie and tell their father he was killed by an animal. Yes.
again, in 10, a distinction is made if a colleague dispatches a dog or a snake at a colleague. In all above instances, a person is not executed. He is considered to be a murderer and one who seeks vengeance for bloodshed. Well, we'll seek vengeance. Okay, we'll seek vengeance for the bloodshed.
That's God.
So at this point, if in all these instances, is what I'm asking is this when a person goes to a city of refuge? When you're a murderer and you're off the hook, or you're not say murderer, you're a killer. Pardon, a shedder of blood. Is this what gets you? Would you be allowed? Would you be directed to or put in a city of refuge for something like this? Like if you,
it's hard to say. It's hard to say. It's not so clear, and let me tell you why. This is not accidental. This is not an accidental killing. Clearly, if you six your dog on someone and the dog kills them, that's not an accident. So I'm not sure exactly. So you're not executed by the court, but the person's blood redeemer, a relative, can come and kill you. So,
okay,
I would say yes. I would say yes. A person like this could go to a city of refuge, but that would just be my opinion. It doesn't clearly state that.
I just want to know how a person could live there after it happened. How can you go about life freely? You've got a business, you've got maybe even a family, or and you've got this scarlet M on your forehead, basically.
James, man, you're such a great guy. I mean, you be saying this about OJ, man. How could we find a reason to let him go free, man?
No. What I'm asking is, what do we do with the guy? I mean, how do you live and how do you live with yourself?
Well, you can look at the same way as that guy that killed that one young girl from Iowa. He ran to a sanctuary city.
Okay.
And he had priors, but nobody did anything about it.
Yeah, I just don't know how you could live. I don't know how a community could look at the guy and want to buy his meat or want a service or want our kids to go or anywhere near his house. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm not,
right. It's a stigma.
I'm like, yeah. How do you live with that? But yeah, that's
you probably don't. I mean, with any, I mean, this sounds like one of those things that's going to naturally sort itself out when the guy's brother shows up to give you wood poisoning with a 2x4. So
right. I mean, it's like asking how does someone who's, I don't want to say, maybe I should say this on the air, but like, a pedophile, they move to a new city. Now you're on a website that, everyone can log into. No, this guy lives there. Wow. You know what I mean? It's just like, you can't get rid of it.
That is such a stupid, the way they handle pedophiles. Okay. If I was in charge, you know how I would handle pedophiles? Once.
Yeah. I hear you.
Well, that happens sometimes in the jail system too. Sometimes.
Oh yes, it does.
Well. Isn't that interesting that it's so being that is so bad that even like the disgusting society even like takes you out. Even the sludge of society, like this guy has to go.
Yeah. Yeah, when the mafia hitmen and the serial rapists find, you touched a little boy, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that was true, every homosexual would be dead, so no.
Oof. You said it, not me. Any last for chapter 3? Anything else? Anything? I'll read 4 if
this is intense. Go for it.
No. What do you got for us? Number 3? Anything?
I could keep talking about what we do with the people. I could talk about that all day. I really could. For some odd reason, I could go on all night. So
it's an admirable thing. It's an admirable thing to want. Someone who accidentally killed someone. City of refuge. I like the idea, and then you have the opposite. James, like someone who
puts a rattlesnake in your trailer.
Right? Yeah. Puts a rattlesnake in your trailer. You're the guy that puts rattlesnakes in people's trailers. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we can't kill you, but the court can't kill you, but
it's like the rabbi said, it just naturally sorts itself out. No one's gonna buy anything from you. No one's gonna associate with you. You're eventually gonna
wood poisoning.
Yeah.
I like that. That was good.
That was an expression my dad used to.
Wood poisoning with a two
He
by
always
four.
kept, he always kept wood blocks in our garage. And me and my sister be horsing around, me and one of my friends, and my dad like, "Hey, stop that, or you're gonna make me give you wood poisoning." Basically, his fancy way of saying beaten with a stick.
There you go.
Boy, rough. Different day, different era. I mean, now the parents don't beat the kids. Now it's the kids that beat the parents. You know what I mean?
I can't threaten my kids with wood poisoning. I
Right.
can't threaten my wife that way because she knows how to take it.
Now it's 17-year-old mom. You didn't take out the trash. You start beating them.
Well, my father smacked me around pretty much every day until I was about 16 years old, and I grew bigger than him. And that
Right.
stopped. That stopped pretty quick.
Yeah.
I had to stand up to my stepdad when I was about 15. And it took him by surprise. I didn't punch him. I didn't raise my fist, but I've been taking karate.
Yeah, because my mother would never directly confront my father about anything, but she would get even with him by
Through the kids.
well, yeah, she gave me karate lessons.
No kidding.
My dad grabbed me one time by my shirt collar and my tie and everything. It's kind of my father was a bull. He didn't really know any better. He didn't know how anything to be anything other than a brute, basically. But he spun me around real quick by my tie and started squeezing. I couldn't breathe, so I didn't even think about it. It wasn't like an intentional thing. I just lashed out and I hooked him right in the middle of his throat. I punched him. And he collapsed and everything. And I felt so bad and everything. And my mother was sitting at the kitchen table. She's like, "Don't. He'll get up. Go to school. He'll learn his lesson." And my father never touched me again after that.
Well, maybe that's what he was waiting for.
Maybe. Yes.
He can take care of himself now.
Today you became a man. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. And then it didn't matter. It didn't matter who made him mad. Someone had to pay, even if it wasn't the person that made him mad. And I remember one time he was working on our car in the winter in Cleveland by Lake Erie. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
And it's snowing outside. My sister got the bright idea I don't know where she came up with this. My sister, who's 8 years older than me and obviously so much more mature, picked up a snowball and threw it at the back of my dad's head. And she ran around. He caught me. And I got the whipping.
Dad, my gloves are clean. There's no snow on them. I just walked out the door.
Yeah, it was her. It was her and everything. He's like, "Well, I'm getting you now for something you did or I didn't catch you."
Right, because he can't take it out on the woman. Right.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh. This isn't funny.
It wasn't funny growing up. It's kind of funny now.
And I can relate to that. Ugh.
And I saw my sister. I was like, "Why on earth would you throw a snowball at father?" I was like, "I know you're as terrified of him as I am." She's like, it seemed like a good idea at the time." I was like, "Well, it wasn't. I'm not gonna be able to sit for a month." Okay, chapter 4.
It is what it is. What can you do?
Nothing.
All right. Chapter 4.
Yep. Oh, you got
1. Yeah. What's up?
Okay, go ahead. Nothing. Go ahead.
1. A person who intended to kill a person and instead killed another is not liable, neither for execution by court, nor by financial liability, nor for exile. He is not liable for execution because the cities of refuge will not serve to protection for him, as will be explained. Therefore, a person who throws a stone into a group of Jews without the intent of killing any specific person is not liable for execution by court, even though he in fact killed person. 2. Similarly, a killer is not held liable for execution in the following instances. He intended to strike a colleague in his loins, and the utensil was not significant to kill him as if it struck the person in his loins, but instead struck him in his heart and he died. Or a person intended to strike a colleague in his heart, and the blow was significant to kill, had struck him in his heart, but instead struck him in the victim's loins. It was not significant to kill an ordinary person if struck him in his loins, but his person died. But this person died. In these instances, the killer is not liable for execution by the court, nor is he exiled, because a person who kills intentionally is never exiled. If, however, he intended to strike him on his loins, and the blow was significant to kill him, as if he struck him in his loins, but struck him in his heart, killing him, the killer should be executed. Similar principles apply in allegorious instances. 3. When a person strikes a colleague with a stone or a fist in a manner that could cause his death, does not die immediately, and the assessment should be made if the judges assist that the victim would live. The person who struck the blow is liable only to pay the 5 damages awarded to a person who is injured and he is released. Even if the victim falls ill and his situation becomes even more serious and ultimately he dies, the person who struck the blow is not held liable. If the judges assist that this victim would die, then should imprison the person who struck the blow immediately and wait to see the outcome. If the victim does die and the person who struck the blow should be executed. If, however, the victim's conditions improved and he becomes healed entirely to the extent that he walks in the marketplace on his feet like any healthy person, the person who struck the blow should pay the damages and should be released. 4. The Torah's explanation of Masha'oti, I'm not sure, does not mean that he should walk while supported by a staff or another person. For even a person who is on the verge of dying can walk leaning on support. Instead, the intent of the verse is that he's walked supported on his own power without relying on any factor for support. That makes sense, actually. 5. If it was assessed and the person would die and afterwards his condition improved, but then deteriorated and ultimately had died, the killer should be executed. We do not make a second assessment after the victim's condition improves, but there is a basis for the assumption that he had died because of the original blow. 6. If 10 people strike a person with 10 different sticks and he dies, they are not held liable for execution by the court. This law applies regardless of whether they struck him one after another or they struck him all at the same time. These concepts are derived from Leviticus, Vayikra 24:17. If he strikes any person mortally, he should be put to death. Kol, meaning all, translated any or any, I guess, also means all. Implied in the death is not required unless the person alone is entirely accountable for that person's death. The same law applies if 2 people push a colleague into water or held them there, or several people are sitting together and an arrow emerges from their company and kills. None is held liable for execution. 7. A different ruling is rendered in the following instance. 10 people threw stones at a person, one after the other, and none of the stones was significant weight to cause death. Afterwards, another person cast a stone that was significant weight to cause the death of the victim died. It caused the death and the victim died. The last person who threw the stone should be executed. If a murderer who was sentenced to execution becomes intermingled with other people, they are absolved. Similarly, when a murderer who was not convicted becomes intermingled with other murderers who were sentenced to execution, none shall be executed. The rationale is that the judgment can be passed on a person only in his presence. All killers should, however, be imprisoned. 8. The following laws apply when a person kills people, but the witness did not observe the act together. Instead, one saw him after the other did, a person killed in the presence of a witness, but a warning was not given, or the witness to the murder contradicted the others with regards to the fine points of the testimony, but not with regards to the fundamental questions. All those murders should be forced to enter a kippah, and they are fed parched bread with small amounts of water until their digestive tract contracts. Then they are fed barley until the bellies burst because of the extent of the sickness, and they die. That's a yummy one. No pun intended. 9. This measure is not taken with regards to other crimes punishable by execution by the court. If the defendant is liable for execution, he should be executed. If he is not liable for execution, he should be released. Although there are other sins that are more serious than murder, they do not present a serious danger to society as murder does. Even idol worship, and needless to say, incense or a violation of Shabbat, are not considered as severe as murder. For these sins involves man's relationship with the Lord, while murder involves man's relationship with his fellow. Whoever commits a sin, this sin is an utterly wicked person. Utterly wicked person. All the mitzvot that he performs throughout his lifetime cannot outweigh this sin and save him from judgment. It says in Proverbs 28:17, quote, a man weighed down with life's blood will flee to the pit, unquote. Come and learn from the examples of Achav, the king of Israel. He was an idolater, so debased in his paganism that 1 Kings, Melachim 21:25 says, quote, there was none like Achav who gave himself over to perform wickedness in the eyes of the Lord, unquote. And yet, when his merits and his sins were weighed in the presence of the Lord's Spirit, there was no sin that warranted his destruction and was not counterbalanced by a positive quality except the blood of Navot. Thus, it is written, as in it states in verse 22-21, in the description of the prophecy of Achav's death in battle, quote, and the Spirit came and stood before God, unquote. Our sages comment, quote, this is the spirit of Navot, unquote. And God told the Spirit, as in verse 2, quote, you will pursue him and prevail, unquote. Now, this wicked man, Achav, did not actually kill his victim with his own hands, merely brought about his death. How much so is this condemnation should apply when a person kills another with his own hands? 10. It is a mitzvah to kill minim and an apostate. The term minim refers to Jewish idol worshippers or those who perform transgressions for the sake of angering God. Even if one eats non-kosher meat for the sake of angering God or wears shatnez for the sake of angering God. The term apostatism, apocryphism, I don't know how to say it in Greek, refers to the Jew who denies Torah and the concept of prophecy. If there is a possibility one should kill them with a sword in public view, it is not possible one should develop a plan so that one could cause their death. If there is a possibility one should kill them with a sword in public view, it is not possible one should develop a plan so that one could cause their deaths. That's interesting. What is implied? If one sees such a person descend into cistern, and there is a ladder in the cistern, one should take the ladder and execute himself. Say, quote, I must hurry to take my son down from the roof. I shall return with the ladder to you soon, unquote. Similarly, one should devise another analogous plan to cause the death of such a person. 11. Regards to a Gentile idolater with whom we are not at war, a Jewish shepherd of a small livestock and alike. By contrast, we should not try to cause their death. It is, however, forbidden to save their lives if their lives are threatened. For example, when such a person fell into the sea, one should not rescue him. As it says in Leviticus, Vayikra 19:16 states, quote, do not stand idly by while your brother's blood is at stake, unquote. This does not apply in regards to such individuals because they are not, quote, your brothers, unquote. 12. When does the above apply? With regards to a Jew who sins and preserves in his wickedness, continually repeating it, meaning shepherds of a small livestock who show no consideration for the prohibition against robbery and continues their perversity. When, by contrast, a Jew commits a transgression but does not maintain his wickedness continually, merely occasionally sinning for his own personal satisfaction, meaning one who eats non-kosher food for pleasure, it is a mitzvah to save his life. It is forbidden to stand idly by when his life is threatened. I apologize. Wow, tough reading. Tongue twisters.
When a chapter like this, I'm glad you read it because I want to stop and talk about stuff and give commentary. Yeah.
I wanted to stop and talk too. Yeah.
Also, for those of you who are making mental lists along the way, let's have it.
Okay, number 4. There is 2 Jewish words up there. The Torah's expression. What is that?
On his back. The Torah's expression, al mitgav, does not mean that he should walk while supported by a staff or by another person. So yeah, you should not walk on someone else's back. You should not. Your effort should not become at the expense of another person's effort.
Let's see. There was something I wanted to. Go ahead, James.
Okay, how do we imprison? Where is how do we? Because I noticed I don't hear of many except in Egypt, in the Torah. How do we handle prisons in Torah law?
We don't. There's no prison. You decide immediately for the person was to be if he stole a car, cool, he has to pay restitution or whatever. If he did something, he has to die. We execute him. Whatever. What need is there for prison? If he needs to pay a fine, we fine him.
Number 7. All these killers, it ends, and all these killers, however, should be imprisoned. I was saying, is that a very, was that Rambam's influenced in the modern way justice is handled?
So you lock him in a room. That's a prison. That's imprisonment. It's not like having a big separate building with guards and the court locks him away somewhere.
And he stays there for life?
Until whenever the court says he can come out.
Well, this is the first time I've heard of an imprisonment ever. Honestly, in the Divine Code, there's no. So again, there's no system of imprisonment.
No, there's no established. It's a kind of an ad hoc, case by case thing.
I was wondering number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Schmerl hit someone over the head with a bat.
Okay.
And you have one guy that said let's say one guy said he hit him with a blue bat, and the other guy said he hit him with a red bat. I mean, it seems like it's saying like it doesn't. He can't be charged. Is that what it's saying? Like if it contradicts each other, but yet the witnesses saw it, but I didn't understand that really.
Yeah, so it's one of the. So when you kill people, but when a witnesses didn't exert, or another person or a witness remembers it a little bit differently, that'd be a case where it would be excused.
So he wouldn't be like, so if a murderer literally murdered someone in cold blood, which he would normally be executed for, but the people don't really, Chaim didn't say the right color. Maybe there's doubt. It's sort of like.
If there's doubt, yeah.
Okay.
Also in number 8, it says those murderers should be forced to enter a kippah.
Like
a covering, right?
Or a closed space.
Yeah.
Well, prison. Call it prison if you want to.
I thought that was interesting. The way they're fed small perched bread with small amounts of water. The intestines contracts, and then they're fed barley until their stomachs bust. Such a peculiar, just a good. I don't know. Interesting.
I took 11 with a passage from Jeremiah, I believe, where it discussed the people who cut down trees and adorn them with silver and gold and fix them to hold it in a position. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to attack them. It said pretty much the same thing that the Rambam says here. They can't do good. They can't do evil. Stay out of their way. They'll stay out of yours, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
just kind of leave them alone.
So if idolatrous non-Jews live within the borders of the land of Israel, as long as they're peaceful, you're not allowed to attack them to kill them, but you can't save them if they're in trouble either. Now, with Jewish idolaters and Jewish heretics,
I love that. Yeah,
you're obviously obligated to kill them even without it.
And not only that, but you're have to develop schemes to find ways to knock them out. Get rid of them. Find a way to throw them off a cliff without actually being caught. I like that.
Yes, it's tough. Well, I'm going to read a supplementary text from another.
All right, please. I thought that was good.
Explains that a little bit better. This is from Hilchot Mamrim, which is laws about rebels, people who are rebellious. Chapter 3, Halacha 1. A person who does not acknowledge the validity of the oral law is not the rebellious elder mentioned in the Torah. Instead, he is one of the heretics, and he should be put to death by any person. 2. Since it has become known that such a person denies the oral law, he may be pushed into a pit and may not be helped out. He is like all the rest of the heretics who say that the Torah is not divine in origin, those who inform on their fellow Jews, and apostates. All of these are not considered as members of the Jewish people. There is no need for witnesses, a warning, or judges to kill them to be executed. Instead, whoever kills them performs a great mitzvah and removes an obstacle from the people at large.
Rabbi, I don't know if that clarifies things or makes things even worse. That sounds even worse. That sounds hateful.
Don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man.
Yeah, well, a heretic is not to be allowed to live.
Man. It's rough.
Yeah, all Gentiles have to do is be nice.
Yeah, if you're a Jewish heretic or a Jewish idol worshiper, I don't need the court. I don't need witnesses. I can pull out my 9 and just blast you. Basically.
I'm just glad John kept it together during number 2.
Number 2.
Good.
Oh yeah, the loins. Yeah.
If you would have started laughing, I would have lost it. Oh.
Right in the loins. Good.
Yeah.
I wanted to know maybe what does that? I mean, okay, he's eating treif meat for sake of angering God, or wearing shatnez. I mean, I don't understand what that means. Oh, I'm gonna put this beautiful cotton linen blend shirt on to piss off Yud K Vav K. Damn him! I want to wear my shatnez. I mean, I don't get that. I don't understand what that means.
So a min plural being minim, is someone who denies God exists, or someone who routinely violates a Torah commandment with the expressed purpose of angering God. Who would do that? I have no idea.
Atheist.
Would this be like? Would this be like just like
Hypothetical law.
Would those be like Jews turned atheist?
You believe in God enough so much that you want to piss him off.
Yeah, I
that
know
doesn't make sense.
it's kind of a confusing concept.
I mean, it's like I'm an atheist, so I'm gonna deliberately walk around with like, I don't know, whatever it is. It is. But I did like the fact that, oh well, if the person likes bacon cheeseburgers, if you know, if a yid he likes the McDonald's, all right, you can save his life, just as long as he's not doing it because he hates God.
Yeah, for personal pleasure.
Yeah, like if a person who's normally a pretty decent guy, but occasionally,
he's at McDonald's once in a while.
Yeah, type of thing. That person is not considered. That's not he's not a min.
I mean, number 10, the bottom of number 10 is good. You know, you should, you know, if you see someone, you know, in a hole, a cistern or whatever, you know, run, grab your ladder, you know, save him. You know, it's good.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says at all. If this is about this is a heretic.
Oh,
if one sees such a person descend to a cistern and there is a ladder in the cistern, one should take the ladder and excuse oneself, saying, "I must hurry to take my son down from the roof. I shall return with the ladder to you soon." Yeah.
Right. And it's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. He's riding with and all you see is the little like wind marks, and you know what I mean. That's how fast he's gone. All right, good, nice.
That's oh my gosh, that's funny. They almost cartoonish, like you said. Yeah,
he's out of there. He's quick. Andre.
Other analogous plans. Wow. Well, you got to do what you got to do. You know.
I don't know. That's some good stuff. I mean,
there's still some that's still funny. I mean, I can't help it. That's just a little wink from the Rambam there. I don't know. That's what I got.
Yeah, I don't know how I would personally do that. I don't know how I would feel. I mean, I'm not saying we live in these type of times where we go by these. I don't know, but Rabbi, I don't think I personally would take a ladder out of a hole. Even the guy was the biggest piece of crap in the world. You know, I mean.
Oh, I would. I'd kill someone for a Klondike bar.
All right, all right, ladies and gentlemen, comment, rate, and subscribe.
So many people, their sin is, oh, I watch porn, or oh, I sleep with loose women, or oh, I eat bacon, or whatever. Tell you one thing: if thinking about murdering someone was the same as murdering someone, I would have murdered millions of people by now.
Oh yeah, me too. I would have called Godzilla from the oceans.
I have a very deep problem. See, my big sin in life has been violence. And so anytime I can avoid that, the thing is I like it. I enjoy pounding on people. It kind of feels good.
That's why God made bowling alleys, okay? Keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, in Gaza, some prick sniper's been shooting at us for half a day, and I finally find the son of a bitch, and I blow his brains out. I didn't feel bad about it. It actually felt pretty good. So it doesn't really bother me.
That was a mercy killing, though.
No, it was wars. We're doing what a warrior should do. Damn it. Sorry. Yeah, my thoughts as well. I would find, like I said, I would bring, if thinking about, I would have brought Godzilla coast to coast.
What was that thing that Chris Rock said? You know, it was a very kind of controversial skit he did. He said, "I want to do a drive-by from here to Brooklyn." And he was in LA when he recorded that, so
wow.
I mean, some people, yeah, some people, the only thing that's prevented them from being murdered, the lack of a good opportunity on my part.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if you do it right, you might get that. If it's done right, the right time, the right situation, you can have that opportunity. But we don't want that.
That's a T-shirt too. I think the only reason some people are alive is because it's illegal to kill
them.
Yeah,
That's right.
God deems you worthy of life, not me. So,
right, I'm the first one to say build a fence around Chicago and let them have at it.
Yeah.
Get the kids out and send in a bunch of whiskey and PCP. Lots of cameras.
Well, yeah, what you do is you take the whole state of Colorado, you fence it off, you evacuate all the people, and you put all of the serial killers, demented weirdos there, and that's where you send people who commit crimes. And
like
then
I said, Chicago.
you turn it into like a pay-per-view TV event. You could pay off the national debt.
Mm-hmm.
Why Colorado?
It's square. Square states are easy to manage.
It's off. I heard that.
I don't know. Arizona and New Mexico might argue that fact.
Well, we get spares.
Wow, yeah. They don't even do anything interesting anymore. It's like lethal injection. Come on, where's the entertainment with that? You catapult them 150 feet into a brick wall.
And put it on the national, line them up.
Absolutely. Bring back crucifixion. You'll have to give someone the death penalty once, and they'll cut the shit out.
Public hanging. That's,
I don't understand the complications in a Christian-based society when strangulation was a perfectly legitimate form of execution. It's a rope. How much does a rope cost?
Nothing. I mean, rope. I mean, some scaffolding, some wood. It's like you're in like $150 in half an afternoon, and you can look. I think society was a lot more civil and a lot more law-abiding when courthouses had their very own unique Halloween decorations and ornaments.
There was something on that.
Look at our life-sized hanging lawn gnomes. Okay, that's that's the guy that robbed the pharmacy. It's not that hard to figure out.
Wasn't there something earlier in the halakha about that? As an example set to put the fear in other evil men. That he's used that way. It was like the worst kind of a jerk too. What was that? Oh, okay. No one knows offhand. I will come back to that then. I'll find that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? We read it earlier.
Not off the top of my head.
You should be.
What was it? That question you had from the first chapter?
You would put the guy through hell. You couldn't execute him, and it was to put the fear of God into other evil men.
I vaguely know what you're saying. I don't remember exactly what number that was.
Yeah.
Well, some people, the Torah is way kinder than I am. I'll tell you that. Someone touches a little kid or anything like that, I'd skin them alive and roll them in rock salt.
I got a thing for the Apache resistance. Scalping.
Oh, well, that's not originally their thing.
Oh, well, I'm an American. I'm Indian. I got Indian in me.
Well, do you know who taught the Indians how to scalp? The English. When Christopher Columbus arrived in America, the Indians didn't scalp people. They didn't know what it was. It was the British during the French and Indian War and the Beaver Wars earlier. They taught the Iroquois, when you go into Canada to raid against the French and the Hurons, to prove how many of them you killed, you bring back scalps. That's how it started, and then it spread to other tribes.
Oh, my goodness.
So that would be likened to the ear collection a lot of Vietnam vets had.
Yeah. It was so they could prove if you brought back so many scalps of Frenchmen or of Huron Indians, the British would pay the Iroquois like a bounty, like a reward.
I did not know that.
Most people don't.
And I get it. And you're right about we were tipping our hat to ladies, and we were more mannerly people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was also back when everyone wore 6-shooters and armed society. They'll say, "Oh, nobody ever hears about anything that happens in Montana." There's nothing to hear about in Montana. Everybody walks around with a gun on their hip. Nobody tries to start crap. There's nothing to hear in Montana.
But California is a different story. Back then.
Oh yeah, yes. California's a different story to begin with. Yeah, I love how they keep on saying, "Oh, we're going to declare independence and secede from the," and the rest of the country's like, God, "Thank God, leave."
Right. Okay.
Okay, yeah, we got a little off topic.
Yeah. Who's reading?
I am. Whenever a person kills unintentionally, he should be exiled from the city in which he killed to a city of refuge. It is a positive mitzvah to exile him as implied by Numbers 35:25. He shall dwell there until the death of the high priest. The court is admonished not to accept a ransom from the killer to enable him to remain in his city. As 32 states, you shall not accept a ransom so that he will not have to flee to his city of refuge. A person who kills unintentionally is not exiled unless the person whom he kills dies immediately. If, however, he wounds a person unintentionally, even though the court assesses that the victim will die, and the victim indeed falls sick and dies, the killer is not exiled. The rationale is that the death may not have been entirely the killer's fault. Perhaps the victim in some way hastened his own death, or wind entered his wound and caused him to die. Even if the killer severed the victim's windpipe and esophagus, the victim remained alive for a short while. The killer is not exiled on this accord. Therefore, it is only when the victim died without entering any death spasms at all, or was killed at a place that was not open to the wind, example, a closed marble building or the like, that the killer is exiled. 3. When a Jew unintentionally kills a servant or a resident alien, he must be exiled. Similarly, if a servant unintentionally kills a Jew or a resident alien, he should be exiled. Similarly, a resident alien who kills another resident alien or a servant unintentionally should be exiled. For the passage concerning the cities of refuge, Numbers 35:15 describes them as being for the children of Israel, an alien and the resident among you. When a resident alien kills a Jew unintentionally, he should be executed. Even though he acted unintentionally, the rationale is that a person must always take responsibility for his conduct. Similarly, if a resident alien kills another resident alien because he thought he was permitted to kill, he is considered to be close to acting intentionally, and he should be executed for he intended to kill. When one Gentile kills another Gentile unintentionally, the cities of refuge do not serve as a haven for him. For the above verse states, for the children of Israel. When a son unintentionally kills his father, he should be exiled. Similarly, when a father unintentionally kills his son, he should be exiled. When does the above apply? When a father kills his son while not in the midst of Torah study, or when he was teaching his son a profession that is not necessary for him. If, however, he imposes punishment on his son while teaching him Torah, secular knowledge, or a profession, and the son dies, the father is not liable for exile. Similarly, when a teacher strikes a student or an emissary of the court strikes a litigant who refuses to appear in court and accidentally kills him, he is not liable for exile. This concept is derived from Deuteronomy 19:5, which mentions the punishment for exile for a person who unintentionally kills a colleague while chopping wood, i.e., a permitted act. This punishment is not imposed when a father strikes a son, a teacher strikes a student, or an emissary of the court strikes a litigant, for they unintentionally killed while performing a mitzvah. At the outset, both a person who killed unintentionally and one who killed intentionally should flee to a city of refuge. The court in the city in which the killing took place sends for the killer and brings him back to that city, as 12 states, and the elders of the city shall send and take him from there. If the killer is condemned to execution, he should be executed, as it continues, and they shall give him to the hand of the blood redeemer. If a person is absolved, he should be released, as Numbers 35:25 states, and the congregation shall save the killer from the hand of the blood redeemer. And if the killer is sentenced to exile, he should be returned to his previous place, as continues, and the congregation shall return him to his city of refuge. When he is returned to his city of refuge, he is given 2 Torah sages to accompany him, lest the blood redeemer attempt to kill him on the way. They should tell him, "Do not deal with him in the manner of those who shed blood. It was unintentional that this happened." When a blood redeemer slays a person who killed unintentionally outside the Sabbath limits of his city of refuge, he is not held liable, as Deuteronomy 19:6 states. He is not judged as liable to be executed. The above applies whether he kills him on the road before he enters his city of refuge, or if he kills him when returning together with the 2 who are guarding him. If he enters his city of refuge and intentionally departs beyond its Sabbath boundaries, he has granted a license for his life to be taken. The blood redeemer is permitted to kill him, and if another person kills him, that other person is not liable, as Numbers 35:27 states. There is no liability for his blood. 11. If the killer leaves his city of refuge unintentionally, whoever slays him, whether the blood redeemer or another person, should be exiled. If the killer is slain within the Sabbath limits of the city of refuge, the one who slayed him should be executed. The altar of the temple serves as a haven for killers. This is derived from Exodus 21:14, which states, with regard to a person who kills intentionally, "You shall take him from my altar to die." One can derive from this that one who kills unintentionally should not be killed at the altar. Thus, if a person kills unintentionally and takes refuge at the altar, and the blood redeemer kills him there, he should be executed as if he killed him in a city of refuge. 13. What serves as a haven is only the top of the altar in the temple. However, it serves as a haven only for a priest who is in the midst of sacrificial worship. For a person other than the priest, a priest who is not involved in the sacrificial worship, or a priest who was involved in the sacrificial worship but was near the altar or holding on its horns, the altar does not serve as a haven. If someone takes a refuge on the altar, he is not left there. Instead, he is given guards and taken to a city of refuge. When does the above apply? When one is obligated to be exiled. If, however, a person fear that a king will have him executed, as is the king's authority, or that the court will execute him as an immediate directive, and fled to the altar and held onto it, he should be saved. This applies even if he is a commoner. He should not be taken from the altar to die unless he was sentenced to death, because of the testimony of witnesses who delivered a warning, as is always required with regard to those executed by the court. Dun, 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 dun.
No human sacrifice.
Okay, bonus round. Who is the resident alien? The Gare. But I have a question about 4, because we know on the website here we can get, double meanings or double translations or confusing. We have the resident alien, the Gare. This is in 3 and 4. But then he says that when one Gentile kills another, I'm not sure what word he uses here. What is he referring to? Is there a difference in the Gentile in 4 and the resident alien?
Just like a regular, like a nokri.
Okay. In 4. So just to be clear, the city of refuge is not a prison. I've heard that argument before made. Well, we have prisons. and I never thought of it as a prison. I didn't never think of it. That was what we're talking about, the justice system, American justice system, Western justice, whatever. Well, we have prisons; those are cities of refuge, and I just want to make it clear it's not a prison.
No, it's just a city. It's just designated as a refuge city. There are normal people that live there who did not commit crimes. It's just a city that you seek refuge in.
Like we have here now.
Yeah, well, a little bit different, but yeah. Yeah, there were. I believe there were 6 of them in total.
What a healthy thing to have. Maybe that's because I've never seen one before. But you don't see them anywhere else. There's really nothing like it that I can find. It's run by the priests, the Levites, refugees from other people who come willingly, to Israel. People who have a weight on them come there. I'm sure there's commerce. A city of refuge is and protected by law. It's a beautiful thing. It's not separate. It's mandated as part of the society. I think it's beautiful. It's great. There's my 2 cents.
Okay, question. During the 7 years, is there still have to stay in, I know they still have to stay in the exile until the head priest dies, but huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Does that apply during a Jubilee year as well, or no?
No, the only way to get out is when the high priest dies.
Okay.
So hopefully when you accidentally kill someone, the priest is like 99. Not to be that long. Yeah, that's just, it's when the high priest dies. That's when you can be free.
And the blood libel doesn't apply when you're free, correct?
Correct. Once that happens and you're set free, that no one can come after you.
Can we say that Cain was an unintentional killer?
No, Cain was an outright murderer.
Okay. Okay. What else was there? There's one good thing. At the altar is what struck me, but I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about here. We're talking about an altar to God in the city of refuge.
No.
No.
The temple.
There's only one temple.
That's okay. That's what I'm going to get.
Well, no, this is a separate issue from a city of refuge. If a person kills someone unintentionally, if they run into the temple to the altar, it's a sanctuary.
Okay.
Because you can't commit a human sacrifice.
Right. Okay. Oh, getting my wires crossed. I might have to leave myself. I gotta do some chores. I haven't completely unpacked. So I might have to take off as well. Can we pick this up next week or tomorrow night? Maybe.
Of course. 100%.
We just read 5, so.
Right,
Okay.
we were going into 6.
Sure. So possibly tomorrow, possibly next week. I'll get back to you on that. No, very good. I'll wrap up the broadcast here.